every medicine that they could to try to get her thyroid to come under some type of regular activity. She was depressed and all kinds of physical problems. So the last alternative they had was to kill her thyroid with radiation and overdose of thyroid medication, and then in turn they would give her medication that she takes every day that acts her thyroid. So they gave her a list of things to do and not to do. One of the things is that my parents should never have any more children. And they had a son and they had a daughter, so it didn't seem an option late in life. So they started with the procedure. And right off the bat, my mom told them she was having the same symptoms she had had twice before, which was when she was carrying my brother's sister.
She knew.
Right. But the doctors thought it was just her thyroid and the medication reacting, so they just told her not to be concerned. And unfortunately, it wasn't until she felt me move within her womb that she convinced the doctors to test, and by then she knew very well she was with child. And so the doctors were very apologetic, but they told her because of the radiation and the medicine that they felt that they were responsible to tell her that I would be like a freak with probability. If she carried me, I could have like 3 legs coming out of my chest, just body parts a mass if I lived. And her life was in danger, so the doctors were trying with all their might to get her to do the thing to protect her, and they fought to prevent me from having a...
Well, with most people, that would have been enough for them to have an abortion. How come your parents did not?
Well, my mom says, and this is a quote, she said something just spoke to her and said, don't, just don't do it, just go with it. And I'm thankful she did, and so my dad agreed to just take the chances, as they put it, and to go with it and see what happened.
Okay, you were born. What was wrong with you from a medical viewpoint? Okay,
when I was born on December 12th, 1961, actually premature, the doctors had already told them I could be a Down syndrome, crippled, blind. But what the doctors termed that I had what they call an elongated tongue. And that's just a big word to say that when I was born, my tongue was double in length, double in thickness, and double in width. It was the size of a 10-year-old. So you take a 6 pound, 7 ounce, 21 inch long baby and put a tongue the size of a 10-year-old. I was literally choking.
I was just thinking that might have that effect.
Right. And
it was bigger than your mouth.
Exactly.
Almost.
So the airflow was cut off. And so the doctors that night, they did everything that they knew to do. I was in no way abused, but they felt like that probably I would choke to death that first night. And so I started off with a very adventurous life.
Yeah, you know what I've found out? Many times when someone has a strong call by God on their life, it's almost like the devil has a little insight and tries to kill them.
Oh, I believe that wholeheartedly. And he usually attacks, I think, the area that's going to be instrumental to be used.
So, your parents decided to raise you.
Right.
But as you got older, when did you first realize you were different?
Well, I spent the first month in the hospital because the only way they could feed me was they had to put my head lower than the rest of my body, so the weight of the tongue would go to feed me with a medicine dropper. But I don't remember any of that, but I remember being raised, and everyone else in my household, their tongue went into their mouth. Nobody else drooled all the time, and my speech was, I talked kind of like this, very thick. I had a very bad speech impediment.
I'm amazed that you were able to talk at all from what you've described.
But I had a way of communicating with that then.
Now, did your tongue just hang out all the time?
Right. As a child, when I was relaxed, and of course, I was not self-conscious of my appearance. We had pictures of me when I was a baby, and it was just relaxed, hanging out of the mouth, just all the time. But when I got about 5 years of age, I became self-conscious of my difference with my friends. And so my parents taught me to learn to take the tongue with my fingers, and I could kind of put it in my mouth behind my teeth. And when I did that, it looked like I had like a swollen jaws, like a pooched up, but at least it wasn't there for everybody to see.
Did other children torment you?
As I got older, about 5 years age, I think kids had to be taught to be prejudiced about anything different. At that age, we were still pretty innocent. But I began to notice that when we would go into a department store, adults sometimes could be insensitive, staring and looking. And so, nobody had to tell me I was different. I had a mirror, I knew that, but I began to feel the looks and the stares.
How did you adjust to this is the way I'm going to be my whole life?
Well, I really think the Lord was with me. I may not have made the right choices, but I overcompensated by trying to feel sorry for everybody else. In my mind, it got twisted that I made other people uncomfortable. If you and I were in public, I would feel for you that because of being with me, people were staring at you. So I tried to cover it up with humor, tried to be what everybody else wanted me to be, you know. In fact, I almost lost my own identity by, I would like your favorite color, I would like your favorite TV show, so overcompensated.
But medically, could they just do some surgery? And
nobody ever approached us. And I don't know if it was new, I don't know if it was so controversial, because as a child, nobody, you know, ever approached my family about corrective surgery. Now, they did as I got about 7 and 8. They pulled 9 teeth, nothing wrong with the teeth in the mouth, because the tongue grew as I grew. So they had to remove something, so they pulled 9 teeth, and then they came up with an apparatus. It was not braces, but it was a metal bar that they put across the teeth that were secured like braces, because the tongue being a muscle, it was pushing those teeth out. So they put pressure against pressure, and I tried to use that as an excuse of why I didn't talk plain, but I think everybody knew the truth.
now, when you caused your tongue to go inside of your mouth so people wouldn't stare, did it cause your cheeks to...
Oh, yeah.
So you still would look bad?
Right, I looked like I had the mumps or a toothache, a swollen face, but it kept it from drooling. It kept from people staring and being able to see it. So I took the lesser of the two evils.
But then when you got a little older, a surgeon wanted to jam the tongue inside of her. Her mouth would be puffed out, and she obviously, you couldn't speak too well as you spoke with an impediment. And then a doctor offered to give you surgery, and you had your first glimmer of hope. You don't have to be like this your whole life, but there was a catch. What was it?
Well, when I was 17 years of age, about to approach my senior year in high school, looking at my future now, school was really like a haven of rest, but I'd never thought about how this is going to affect my future. Marrying, you know, all the normal things you think of. And so we went to get this metal bar tightened, and there was an oral surgeon who was looking for odd birth defects. And he came across my file, and he approached my father and I and told us he could do 7 to 9 operations, which would consist of breaking every bone in my face, reconstructing the face. But the main thing was he would take the tongue, cut the length off, slice the thickness, and then what he turned, cut out the center of the tongue, and the heart of it is what he called it, and sew it up. And it would be totally cosmetic. I could look like anybody I wanted to look like, but I would never speak again.
That's quite a trade-off.
It was, but I was so desperate, and unfortunately, desperation makes you not think of the consequences. I just wanted to be normal then, and I felt like I already, you know, could not speak plain, so what was the big thing of just losing it if I could just be normal?
So you decided to have the surgery, but
Right.
something happened.
Exactly. My parents were not for the surgery because it wouldn't, part of the process would be 2 years without solid food, and it was still experimental and danger. And so after, unfortunately, putting them through a guilt trip and just being an average rebellious child wanting my way, my parents consented. And about the same time they consented, my friend in high school went to church, and she asked the Lord into her heart, and there was such a change in her that I went to church with her. And I began to see things that I'd never seen before, and a peace in her life. And so she invited me to go to a youth service. It was just a normal youth service with singing. But that night when I went in, I took the tongue and made sure it was hidden in my mouth and sitting there. And that night, while a group was singing, the pastor of this particular church just began to weep. And he just took the platform and said he felt like the Lord wanted to just do something marvelous for somebody there. And sometimes I look back and think, you know, I was really, I guess, kind of dumb. I call myself dumb because here I'm about to have every bone broken in my face. They're going to cut my tongue. And here's a minister saying God is telling him that he wants to do something, and I'm wondering who it is. I'm not even thinking like it may be me. But he had everybody pray, and while everybody was praying, he just very gently came and tapped me on the shoulder and took me out into the foyer of the church and just shared with me that he felt like I was the one. He never met me before. And he had not seen the tongue because I had it in my mouth, and just shared with me that the Lord loved me and that he wanted to do something special. And it made such an impact on me because, I mean, we all know God is everywhere, and it almost becomes cliche. But to realize he knew who I was, singled me out just because I'd had my mindset he was against me. This was God's way of just playing with people's lives. And so I opened my mouth, and this minister saw the tongue, and I was weeping by then because I was moved by, his willingness to come. And I wrote down about the surgery, and he began to share with me God's promises concerning healing.
And what about something called faith? Did it start growing?
It did. It actually did. I'll never forget, I'd had a Bible in my home all my life, read it. But when he began to show me specific promises that dealt with specific needs in my life, it was just like it leapt off the page. It was no longer hard to understand. And I really understand why it says faith comes by hearing, because as he began to read and show me something just like, yes, this is more than just a routine, repetitious, let's just go to these services. It became alive in me. And so that night, he asked me, could they anoint me with oil? And I'd never seen anybody anointed with oil. I didn't know if it was salad oil, monk oil. I mean, I did not know. But I had a hope, and I was going with that hope. And so they prayed with me, and that night, nothing happened in the natural. Nothing happened to my tongue, no manifestation. But it was just like a peace within me that I had a hope. And so I go back and tell my parents that I have decided not to have the surgery. And my dad said, well, you have a responsibility to talk to the doctor. And so I went and shared with the doctor what happened. And he was very concerned that I was just not reacting to an emotional moment, and, very diplomatic, but very upfront with me that it was my life I had to live. These other people didn't have to walk in my shoes. They loved me, and it was good, but I needed to really consider it. And so it was a decision time. And in that moment, my tongue went just as hot as if you had taken a coal off of a grill and put it in my mouth. It wasn't a warm feeling.
Did it hurt?
Oh, it hurt. I mean, I was thinking, in all honesty, if I open my mouth, smoke is going to come out. And I'm thinking, what is going on in my mouth?
You've been praying for a healing,
exactly.
And now it's happening, and you're wondering
the
what
last thing, exactly, because I guess I had God in a little box on how he had to do it. And it got so warm that I thought, I've got to open my mouth. But there was the embarrassment of opening my mouth, what people would think. But after a little bit, I didn't care what the other people thought. I had to open my mouth. And so when I opened my mouth, there was no smoke, but the tongue was just like vibrating. And all kinds of things went through my mind. What is going on? Because, I mean, this is attached to me. I'm not in control of it and what's going on. And in my mind, I'm trying to
So your tongue was hanging out of your mouth.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And it's vibrating,
right.
And it's on fire.
Exactly.
Outside of that, everything's fine.
Right. And it's like, in my mind, I thought, I didn't think it could get worse. But it seemed to. And I think sometimes...
Were you worried that people were watching you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, my pride was right up there, are they going to laugh at me? And I couldn't make it stop. And so she finished the prayer, so I sat down, and with my hand, I was trying to just keep the tongue steady. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I've canceled surgery. I don't know what kind of denomination I am. I can't make it go back in my mouth because it was hard enough with a large tongue, but now one that's burning and one that's vibrating, what am I going to do? And so she prayed for some different people, and she said, well, if there's nothing else, we'll go. And I'd always been kind of a timid person. At that moment, I said, oh, no, before we leave, my tongue. And she just looked at me with, this is not some grand, super name that we know. She just looked at me with a confidence, and she said, tonight's your night. And I remember thinking, tonight, because it was when I least expected. And so she asked me to come back up there. She said, I'm not going to lay hands on you. The Bible says lay hands on the sick, and you and the word have caught up. And so she said to raise your hands, and in order to raise my hands, I had to let go. And I think there was a principle in that. Sometimes we want God to take things, but when it starts doing things we don't want to know, we want to hold on to it because how's it going to look?
Yeah, but what happened to your tongue?
Well, when I raised my hand, she looked at me and she said, in the name of Jesus, I command that tongue to line up with the way the Lord created it and the string to be loosed. And by now the tongue just, at the name of Jesus, it just laid back down to its normal relaxed state. And I remember thinking, I cannot make this happen. I cannot fake it. My flesh is thinking, I can't. My mind is thinking, the doctor was going to do 7 to 9 surgeries. And I just stood there with my hands up in obedience to what she had told me. And in a few minutes, I felt a little movement. And I'm thinking, okay, I probably just tilted my head. You know, you stand long enough, you're liable to do that. And then I felt a little more movement. And within 10 minutes, this tongue that you've heard me talk went over my lip. And God has supernaturally healed me.
What'd you feel at that precise moment?
I wanted to cry. I wanted to faint. I wanted to laugh. I mean, it was just, in fact, it felt so small. I thought God had healed it too much. I thought I was going to swallow it because I had never felt, it's not like something that was swollen. This is something from all my life I had felt the weight of that tongue.
Can I ask you to do something?
Yeah.
You might be offended. Would you stick your tongue out?
Yeah.
It looks normal to me.
It is normal. I went back home, went to the doctor.
What's your